watching this right now and seeing as soon as it
Yeah, we
comes up
are.
on. We are? Okay.
Yeah, we're on.
Okay, so I'm just gonna get this posted out here as well. Like get it out to the grips now. He's okay. He's got it on this. Okay, YouTube is live as well. Awesome, awesome, Hassan. So I'm just gonna pick it up off of the page feed, and we will definitely get that sent out if it's still connected.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to now. It keeps popping in and out like it does for a little bit. So let's just continue with that.
Yeah. So I'm just going to let's see if he's taking it. It looks like so. We are live. Okay, so good. If we're live, if there's people joining in, just give us a second. We're catching up. You know,
Yeah.
in my part of the world, it's the lazy summer days. It's the 21st. The solstice has started, and right off the bat on the 21st, we've hit over 30-degree heat, and welcome summer's here all in one shot. Okay, and as much as it's welcomed, it's also a little tedious because it takes a lot out of you, the heat and the energy and everything else that goes into it. And especially if you're working on the outside, which I'm sure you've had that experience. Okay, we both have, and I'm still doing it. So
Yeah, very much. It
th-
does. It
this,
takes its toll.
you know, we were just talking just before we went live here. It's the same thing, with walking our story, walking our truths, walking this essence of, and oneness, wholesomeness. I mean, we're not always in it. I mean, believe me, sometimes it's, we're outside of it as well because the outside world around us is filled with a bunch of, we can go all down that rabbit holes, right? But let's
Malarkey.
stay,
Malarkey.
it's,
I
yeah,
like I like the word I like the word malarkey.
yeah,
There's a lot of
malarkey.
malarkey.
Yeah, malarkey and mindfuckery. They seem to go in hand a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, very much.
Okay, I'm just sharing this out here to some of the groups, if you don't mind me doing. Tell you what, you start it. You bring it on. Okay, let's see where
Me?
we're gonna go with this one tonight.
Well, okay, as much as it goes in and out, um, we thought of oneness and the finding of balance within that oneness as a great topic to discuss because there's a lot of different variations that people have that are their truth, and in a balance of self, that's all we're trying to find and justify. And those that know me would know that I haven't been active for the last pretty much 2 weeks in just a regathering of self, re-establishment of what is going on and where I fit within the equation. Because that's where we're always trying to navigate through that process of life. Now, with all of that extra burdensome load that we carry in a justification of a story, we then find ourselves in an area which is quite arduous to be able to maintain a level of oneness within self. Because the extremities of those stories, the confusion within our minds, the establishment of something now we are uniquely different, we then become quite perplexed in what that all means, what it all means in where is what and who am I and what was I ever going to be and where am I ever going to find truth. These are all things that come up to us in silence. These are all things that we might skip over because there's so much a convoluted headspace that the uniqueness of this story is not allowing the heart to just simply say, hey, the balance that you need is to simply stop. Stop all of this chase. Stop all of this rushing around and trying to navigate when you simply just have to admit that you are everything in one nutshell. And it is for you to find unique to you. There's no rushing. The beauty that maintains when you exist in oneness is something that isn't confusing. It's something that actually acknowledges that you do not have to leave so abruptly. You do not have to leave in such a haphazard space, because we always sit in a consistent flow that we never ever get to feel what that moment of flow means. So it's a great topic.
Are you finding that's where you are in that space right now, Adrian?
Ah, yeah.
Okay.
In a whole it's always there though, Gary, because it is a constant. You find the holy grail of self. Okay. And we all go through that journey, dark night of the soul. We find something on the other side, greener pastures. But then as we go along on the journey, that attachment that comes from the surrounds of where we put ourselves, we don't always sever the cords in accordance to maintaining the constants of you without the attachment of others. So it's always that whole, okay, I'm taking a little bit of time off to do this. And that's the uniqueness of where we find ourselves today. Oh, shit. Today, yesterday, tomorrow, in a space where time is of our design now. Because everything else, as we've discussed, really means nothing, and it's quite confusing for it to coexist.
So
in
the essence of the constraints of time. So, you know, I've had this conversation many times with many people, is that I don't consider time an essence. Okay, and let me explain a little bit.
Yeah.
Is that if you hold me to the hour, you're going to be waiting, because anything can happen. Anything can happen in the process of me trying to be there. That's, you know, okay, here's a second there, there's a minute there, there's 5 minutes there, there's 15 minutes there. So a lot of people who've talked to me, you know, they're like Gary, how can you do that? Well, it's because I don't have the pre-notion of the fixation of time. I have the pre-notion of fixation of presence. I'm constantly checking myself into presence. Always. You know, sometimes I drift and I pull myself back. One of the hardest things that I have found in this journey towards oneness and wholesomeness and acceptance of self is exactly that. Keeping myself present. Because if not, it's the mind fuckery that takes a hold and pulls me into yesterday's story or somebody else's story, or, you know, a situation that I don't want to partake in. Over the last number of years, what I found myself is more and more, I'm choosing to whether I engage or I disengage without reason. I don't have to justify my reasoning in the regards to I disengage from that conversation or I disengage from that association. It's just like, bang, it's done. Okay, if I don't, then I get pulled into the story, versus I don't have time for that story. I've ended it. And that's the hardest thing at times to do, because you know the people around me will say, well, you're being indifferent, or you're being distraught from the truth of what's going on. No, that's your truth. What you're seeing, what your desire is, what your need is. What I see is my truth. Like what you see is your truth. And to keep on this plane of love of self is constantly in check. Constantly. Because there's moments I catch myself in the moment that I've made a decision to do something, and now I've taken myself into, it's going to pull me away from, you know, the oneness for a minute, because I'm going to get into the story. Okay. And I found that the more that I disassociate myself from the story of the other and keep myself into the story of where I am in my presence, you know, who I am as a person, how I'm going to react, whether I'm going to engage or disengage, is a constant challenge. It is not like, okay, you arrive, I'm one, and then it's smooth sailing. Oh, no, it's not. Okay, you're constantly challenged to pull you away from that, because what others are seeing in me and seeing in you is that, how come you're walking with balance? How come I can't have that? Okay, if I can't have that, then guess what? I'm going to disrupt your balance to pull me into my story. And this constant challenge amongst peoples and you know, all of the beliefs and the protests and everything is that it's like walking a loaded gauntlet. In fact, it's a loaded Gatling gun is what it is. Okay, it's flying at you every which way. If you're working in a situation or a business, you're working for somebody, and you know the onslaught of all of the V stuff and the M stuff, and you know the forced this and forced that. You know, trying to stay whole is that's not easy. But is it possible? Yeah, it is. Even if it means you have to walk away from people and then, you know, don't disengage. You know, don't engage, because the moment you have engaged, that's it. You're in the trap. Now you got to swim it. So I'm tired of swimming. I'd rather go on a leisure swim, you know, where it's a choice versus an obligation. And this essence of what's around us, what's going on. I put out a post as an example today about the more you feed the story of the negative, the more you become part of that negative. So what are you going to do? Where's your choice? You know,
Change the narrative. It's to change the narrative. And the
change the
narrative,
narrative.
that's something that I've said from day dot. The way to
Yep.
get through this is to change the narrative. And if we're
Yep.
talking about balance and finding balance, the beauty of all of that, and this is shitting me because this does it every time. I might have to jump out and then come back in.
Well, don't jump too far and just take it easy. It's not too far of a dive, so you don't break a leg.
Because it keeps cutting in and out. But that finding of balance is by, if you're engaging in a space where there is a high level of conversation that is causing disruption in your mind, disruption in your heart, disruption in the space of what you're carrying. It's easy to entertain and engage that by the brutal changing of the narrative, by simply saying, thank you for being here and showing how negative you are in an aftermath of feeling as I'm cleansing. I don't really like your words anymore, these words that have been spoken, the words that I have said. So I'm going to change that because I take pride and the beauty of what language can create.
Yep.
You then take it with gratefulness and appreciation that you can interpret a next level of conversation to actually disregard that whole element of negativity and only engage in a space where people aren't being complexed or perplexed by the discussion in itself. It's allowing it to be felt as opposed to heard. Because a lot of the conversations that are being spoken about are being heard and then in an aftermath being felt. And that aftermath hasn't resolved within the heart space. It's let it hit the heart space. And then there's only sorrow, which therefore there's fear and anger that is associated. So in regards to cleaning and purging the narrative, you then actually take the credibility of the design of the language and then reinterpret it into a space where people are always left to find that one spark within themselves. And that's quite easy when people are listening and they hear your word. That's the difference between hearing and listening, because listening's the mind, hearing's the mind, listening's the heart. And that balance is trying to find how you can then do that in your own space. So starting in your own private space, talk of love, speak of love, speak of genuine love with the beauty that you've created within your household, within your front yard, your backyard. Don't be intimidated by a negative cultural language that is biased on an evolution of self, because
Mm-hmm.
that's all it is. And if you're taking the hard stance of science and analytics, you can easily justify how belittling that language is.
Well,
And
I say it like this: the more you analyze, take the first four letters ANAL. Where's your head?
yeah,
Okay, you know that you spin and you analyze, you analyze, you analyze, you analyze. Time has gone by, if essence of time. Okay, and then you look at, well, where are you? You've analyzed so much, you froze. You've actually paralyzed in the moment. So this over analyzation of, you know, as if it's an argument, well, you did this and I did that, and you did this and I did that, and it keeps on going and going and going and going, versus, you know what, stand back, breathe, reflect, say it once, it's not heard, good, cut the cord and move on.
keep going.
That's
I'll be back.
rock hard. Okay, so, you know, cutting cords. I mean, we sort of dropped into this one. So as Adrian's having problems with his internet connection on one of his devices, let's go into this a little bit. In the essence of cutting a cord, okay, somebody says, well, how can you cut relationship with family? Well, it's easy. I can cut relationship with family when it is toxic and it's negative, okay, and it's distrustful. So I make a choice. And my choice is, do I engage in what's wrong, or do I simply say, you know what, doesn't belong to me, belongs to them? And Adrian, as you're coming back in, I took a situation, an example, as I was talking about cutting a cord, okay, and how we go about cutting that cord in the sense that, blood or not, family or not, sometimes these are things that need to be done for your own sake of your own wellness. It is not saying, you know what, I hate you. I don't hate anybody. I may dislike you. I may dislike your choices, but I don't hate. Okay, I make a choice to say I'm not going to engage in that. And if I take a prime example of that with my brother, 1 year difference. For years, the conversation has always been the poor me on his side of things. And this is the truth. And I'm not afraid to speak about it wholeheartedly, because in the essence of his self-pity, okay, and, you know, blaming everything on everybody except for the choices that he made for himself, I made a decision. And my decision was, I'm not going to listen to this anymore. I don't want to hear it anymore. So it's over. That's it. Move on. Okay, and did I have to say it in a way to that person saying, you know what, I don't want to talk to you? No, I just made the choice. I disengaged. And this is not easy to do. You know, let's face it, it's not easy to disengage from, you know, from family, from friends, or maybe what you thought was a friend. Again, the art of listening versus the art of hearing. You know, we're born with this desire to be heard, to be seen, to understand. And in order for that to take place, it takes the art of listening, not hearing. It takes the art of listening. And it means I'm not holding space, I'm allowing space to speak a story. And in this essence of oneness, this is the hardest thing to always keep yourself in that balance. It's some say, well, I've arrived at full oneness and I can walk like a flower. No, it doesn't work like that. Okay, it takes a lot more. It takes discipline. It takes consistency.
Well, you're talking
Because
about
if not,
like
we get into our
ancient monks. You're talking about oneness. Ancient monks come to oneness, especially
yes,
within the Asian space. That's huge oneness there, and they sit for years silent to actually create that space and then engage with no hatred, no anger,
yeah,
no fear. That is the element of oneness. That is this Christ consciousness. It is this space of seeing a story, going beyond the story to then actually see what it is in its entirety. That doesn't come by sleeping one night, waking up the next morning, reading all of this other stuff and everything like that. It's not that. It is the simple, and we go back to time. Your time, your breath is the management of you. Everything else is what you have to cut the cords from. That is the existence of everything. Therefore, if you cut the cords of existence of everything in the negotiation of what it means, you then just start to let it go, because it doesn't hold. It doesn't hold that element of faith in which yourself is searching for to respond to self. Because your faith is given out in so many other variations, because that is the uniqueness of your story. That is the everyone's story. They've all got snippets of what they believe, so therefore the belief is the faith that that is true, to then put them in that space, to put them in that element of time. That's the whole world. Everybody's in that same bubble. It's until you see that that is the limitation that you actually start to understand what they sit years silent for, to actually get a better understanding, therefore knowing of why we are here, why this is happening.
When you look at up to now, where you are right now, Adrian, okay, and the same thing, I'll respond to my own question as well. What is the hardest thing that you faced to the present moment?
Worthiness.
Worthiness
of self,
okay.
to actually rewrite what you see, what you feel, and disregard a lot of what has already been written and been put as part of the curriculum. Because the understanding of what I've gone through in the last 3 years, and still now every day, obliterates any former understanding of the previous 44 years. Because that was a comprehension riddled with the misguided positioning of where I seen myself in a society. And that is the groundwork, that is the foundation for a lot of people's principles. If they've not been severely scorned and bitten early by the system, they are in the same pretty much boat, acknowledging that the system has some faith that there's a lot, they're going to look after them in some accordance. Yeah, going through that and seeing all of that as a denial, and then rewriting an understanding or a knowing again of clarity is the biggest thing. So worthiness of self, to find clarity in judgment, in ability to navigate.
Okay.
That was the two toughest things, because I'm not educated. I can't go into a bank and go blah, 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 blah. I can, but I can't do it like in accordance to what they would dictate, deem fit, to navigate through that financial space. In the business.
Having the piece of paper on the wall that says, well, I have a doctorate or this and that, which is basically just a piece of wallpaper. Okay.
Which is limited lifestyle.
Yeah.
So, yeah. What about you?
Breaking my stubbornness, I think, has been the hardest thing up to right now. I get something in my mind. Nothing will sway me away from it. Nothing. Even if I hit myself with a hammer, unless I break a bone, not much is going to stop me from doing that. And it's been this, to ease off on my stubbornness. This has been the hardest thing, especially when I'm fixed with the idea of the essence of love and the understanding of love, and going forward in a peaceful movement, and not engaging in that of the other. I'm very headstrong and very set in my way, in the sense of, I know what works for me. I'm not expecting it to work for another. I know what works for me. But sometimes I have to back off from my head's the strength of my mind. And this is where I'm disconnected because my stubbornness is now taken over and my mind is just like, that's it, it's fixed. And my heart's trying to say, hey, slow down a little bit, open up some space. And it's like, no, the head's, like, boom, straight ahead like a locomotive.
It's not stubbornness then, it's your mind.
Yeah.
It's your mind, because the heart just says, hey, sit down, take it easy.
I got a story with this one. And this is going to go back a few years. How stubborn, in a good way, but in a stupidity. And I will say it was a stupid thing to do. Honestly, I don't recommend anybody doing this. But I was in a situation where I was just being bombarded. Okay, without going into name, we'll keep that out the side. But I was being bombarded with this negativity. And it was boiling. Like I was boiling and trying to hold back this one side of my character is this button, this anger button. And I know what it's like when it's gone. Like, and I don't like this side of me. But I admit it, I assume it, and I know that it's there. So in the moment that this was happening, I had two choices. Was one, I'm going to lash out on where the negative is coming from, or I'm going to lash out on self. So I lashed out on self, and I ran straight into a wall, bent over like a bull, and hit the 2x4. Now there's 16 inches in between these 2x4s. What the chances are that you're going to actually nail this 2x4 right dead center? I nailed it dead center, kicked myself back, put me on the ground, knocked myself flat out. My son thought I was dead. That was for an instance. But yeah, that's how stubbornness can overtake the heart. Because my heart was crying out. And I wasn't allowing my heart to come forward to show you know what, this is hurting. Instead, turned it into anger.
Yeah.
I learned something. One,
yeah.
One off, make sure that the wall doesn't have the, like calculate where maybe where the 2x4 is first. Okay.
Always carry a stud finder. That was lesson one. Always carry a stud finder for future occurrences.
Yeah.
And you're right though. And what Adam says here, darkness thrives in the void, but always yields to purifying light. Exactly right, brother. I love his words. His words are
well said. Well said.
Yeah, awesome. Well said. Be the best, always the best. I love that thing.
Jared a gent just by the name of Jared threw something up here as well.
Jared.
It said manifestations of unity attempting to understand individually, and like
LOL.
Yeah.
If you're taking the piss, dude, you might as well step off, because to speak of that one comment, put it up again, Hassan, please. Manifesting of unity, attempting to understand individuality. LOL. It's a funny topic to actually comprehend, because in the individuality sequencing, there has to be a complete forgiveness element. So unity is automatically just integrated into that very next model, that very next version, that higher being, because the tolerance in which this element of conversation by Jared, manifestation of unity, attempting to understand individuality, that lack of tolerance within that narrative that you're writing there is the reason why you will not be able to comprehend this conversation. Because what we have is an element of forgiveness upon every living existence and every suffering that has ever happened in this timeline. That's a comprehension of total forgiveness in the element of where we are going in an evolutionary process, given this time. And that's all I can say to that, Jared.
Yeah, no, I full-heartedly agree on that aspect of it. I don't think I could have said it any better than that. The aspect of remaining in an individual in a movement of unity is it a possibility? Of course it is, because you're staying strong to your truth. You're not being a bull, you're not being bullish, but you're staying strong to who you are as the individual, but also in the aspect of understanding that together, regardless of color, creed, language, or anything, together we will promote change and unity, not change in individuality, in individualistic movements. No, stay strong to if you understand yourself as an individual. And the only way to understand yourself as an individual is look in the mirror. Who are you? So if you know who you are, then you're good. Okay. Now, what do you do to bring others together in unity? It's not to bring them in perspective of how you see your truth, but no, how together through open conversations, through open movements, through common analogies of this is peaceful, keep it peaceful, keep it clear, speak with truth, now come together. It's not rocket science, but as our egos overtake this essence of heart, this is where the disconnection and the dismay happens. You're no longer the individual, you're an egotistical individual trying to push yourself in or push your viewpoint to say, hear me and hear me only. And to disassociate from just hearing you is that I have a voice, have it be said. If it's not heard, I make a choice. Do I engage or do I disengage? Because if I have to repeat myself, why? Why should I have to repeat myself if I'm showing in the essence of unity with self? Because one off, as the individual, I also have unity with self. I understand my femininity, my masculinity, my sensitivity, my vulnerabilities, my essence to cry, my essence to become angry. Okay? I understand this as me as a whole, who I am. Okay? In the aspect of, yes, I'm an individual. I stand strong to my truth no matter what. I stand strong to my own truth because I don't need anybody to judge me or have an opinionate of me. I understand myself. I judge myself quite easily. And I think we all do. And when we get into the judgment of self, now we don't see who we truly are. We've lost perspective because we've allowed the program from how the world is expecting maybe to see you, okay, or the intention of, as you mentioned earlier on, you're not educated. Well, I would have stepped that back and said, well, you may not have the paper on the wall, but your education is far more valuable than somebody who sat in 4 years of a study of a program that is maybe already outdated by the time you've got out to try to practice it. The
And
essence.
that's that element of self-sacrifice, self-sabotage. When I do come up and say I'm not educated, I don't give a fucking rat's ass if I've got a piece of paper on the fucking wall or not. If there's something that's valid to be heard, I will listen. If
Yep.
it's big rot, if it's hogwash, I got no relevant time to give to that because it is your miscommunication
Yep.
that is allowing you to open your mouth at this point in time. It doesn't mean that I need to hear it. So that is the relevance of finding oneness in the respect that you have. It's not ignorant. It's not ignorant. It's just saying, I could think of changing the peace on the planet and simply not listen to your conversation, and I'd be in a much better place. A much better place. And I'm not talking about you specifically, Gary. I'm talking about when I'm speaking outside, and the confusion of people's messages is what is going on here. There's a huge element of contradiction and confusion because you've got people talking about awakening, and you've got people talking about a story or an episode of a life story. So there's that whole imbalance there of what is what and where is where and who is what and why am I even doing this? Not personally, but in regards to a lot of people that would be seeking the alternative of bettering of self, finding of higher self, justification of truth. I've been in the silence, I've been seeing that there's a lot of, especially within Australia, there's a lot of religious elements coming up now, about Christ consciousness and the second coming of Christ, and they're putting it into that pigeonhole of religion, Christianity. I see it as very very entertaining. We'll put it that way. I can't say anything else. I can't say anything else. I see it as very entertaining that even today that there's urban mythologies that are still going to try and take space.
Oh,
right now, which
I hear you, my friend. I mean, you know, if anybody, if it, let's just take that last phrase, was said the second coming of Christ. Maybe from a different viewpoint, it is a second coming of Christ, the Christ consciousness within. So the essence of the man that walked the earth and the consciousness of who this man was outside of the religion is now becoming part of this second coming of Christ. We're finding it within. That's my perspective, you know, how I'm seeing it in that essence.
That is exactly what it is. Yeah. But the interpretation that the Bible's predicted all of this, that there's going to be that, I suppose, salvation, that identity that's going to put their hands over and do that, those miracles, so to speak of.
It's like taking the farmer's almanac and saying, well, okay, this is what it's going to be.
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
You know what? Nature, you can't write her story in stone. It doesn't work that way.
Don't give it too much validity with the farmer's almanac. I would have said Mad Magazine's fucking almanac. Because it's just ridiculous. It's seriously silly. It's seriously silly to even put this element that is so beautiful into the hands of the same narrative as religion. That there is such a slap in the face of higher vibration, of energy. That is such a slap in the face to say that this is written and this is happening and this is what's going on. For fuck's sake. Serious. Have some respect for even stumbling upon it if you can't justify it being you.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the simplicity of all of this. Don't put it into some pigeonhole that has manipulated self, oneness, and balance for eons. Please, please have some respect for those others that are going through this, that really, really do feel what has just been said.
Very, very much so. You know, I look at this essence of oneness, okay, and I consider myself a person that's whole, for one, okay, well, knowledgeable. I won't use the word educated. Knowledgeable, okay, you know, a worldly experience that by experience has taught me many things. And one of the greatest things that it's taught me in everything leading up to where I am now in my life is its importance of the breath. Where am I with breath? Because if I'm conscious of where I am with breath, I'm close to this perfection of oneness. Because now I'm almost 100% right in presence. But I'm not 100% in presence. I'm always a little pulled, okay, or a little sidetracked. But 85% of me is in that essence of presence. And this is the hardest thing of this essence of oneness, is that where am I in the wholeness and the wholesomeness of who I am in the moment? So to be whole and the wholesomeness of everything around me, to see that where is it that it is balanced? And if it's out of balance, is there something that I can do, interact? Can I change? Or do I have to let go of and walk away from it? And sometimes it's not hard to, it's hard to walk away because you want to engage, or you know, as an aspect, I want to take somebody and turn them upside down, use them as a jackhammer so I can shake some sense into them. But I got to pull back and let them do what they need to do in order to see what needs to be seen. Because if I enforce into my perspective into it, it's just going to come back and slap me in the face. So learn the hard way. Stick to self and let the rest of them do what they need to do. And it's not about ego and being, you know, all about self. No, I'm not all about self. I'm all about self and keeping myself vivacious, okay? In the sense that I'm living through the moments. I'm living through the essence of, you know, deeper understanding of love. As much as I can go into the depths of love, I'm still finding more depth in it. In every essence of where love can be an extension, you know, into the simplest, tiniest little details. And
Of
it's,
course, you're not going to find it. You're not going to find it tucked away, hidden or anything. It's always in the most simplest element of life.
yeah,
Love is coming from the sun. That is the rays of the sun. It is universal love. It is life energy. Now,
yeah,
in accordance to being in the disruption of existence, to stepping out of that and seeing the potentiality of that being the significant role and principle of all living life, the sun, then you can see, in accordance to all of them historical data, where there's some truth maybe resided in who was a former god and who were gods and what were gods. So then you can represent in yourself that, oh, okay, I've seen this, I've witnessed this, I've felt this. This isn't hard to comprehend. The rest of where I've come from was a complete miscommunication and misunderstanding of where I ever fitted in.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So why isn't it just that? Why isn't it the sun allowing the flowers to grow every day, allowing the birds to chirp, allowing the fauna to exist? That it is that whole element of living, and everything else is a contradiction. Stepping away now is where you need to fit into that accordance of oneness.
If we look at that aspect of it, the essence of that, the answer to that question in many ways is that is because humans, the sun is part of all life. Without light, life as we know it doesn't exist. Doesn't mean that life can't exist without light. I mean, there are light, you know, lives that live in total darkness, but that isn't who we are as a species, and a majority of all life as a species, and in their individual species, is that it requires the sun just as much as we require the father of cosmos. So if we look in the ancient, in the old ways or the old alchemy of shamanism, we have Pachamama and we have there's another one, it'll come to me, okay? The cosmos is the father and earth is the mother. So with the energy from the cosmos that comes from within us, it's this strength, this fatherly energy that's allowing life to begin. And life begins with the essence of having the elements, as we know as a species. Now, I don't know everything that lives out in the cosmos. I mean, there's probably planets that have no sun, and there's life out there, and they are different than we are. Of course they are. But that isn't my concern. My concern is here on this earth, being part of this earth, being part of the peoples, being part of life. We have a function, we have a purpose. And this essence of life is this living in frequent evolution. Everything around us is in constant evolution. And we feel as humans we're in evolution. But I think a majority of the time we're in revolution because we're not really evolving towards the higher purpose. We keep revolving around the program and everything that's been taught to us, the old narrative. So are we evolving? Well, okay, technology just took a jump to 5G. Okay, we evolved. No, the technology just took a jump. We didn't evolve. We just made it easier to get more mind fuckery at it. You know?
Well,
Hmm.
you can't have either revolution or evolution without the word love.
Yep.
So it like we can talk about it all the time and people will never ever comprehend the true element of what love really means until they feel it. And that is
Hmm.
simply feeling love of everything. Irrespective of where you find yourself right now, the ability to take a breath and make a free choice
Hmm.
that there is a change that is abundant for you to arrive to. And abundant, be it whatever you design, and it'll only succeed with what you design.
Yeah.
You understand what a footprint means. You understand that
Hmm.
you understand what disturbance means when a footprint is never tended, if it's not taken care of. You can then see yourself as a footprint wherever you arrive, and then your footprint is the communication that you have, the conversations in which you're driving, the pathways of deployment or enjoyment.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm.
So are you out there to create
Deployment or
chaos?
enjoyment? Wow, that's yeah.
I don't know. Do they mean anything? No. It's just where you engage within a space. Are you being present in the moment to represent what love is? Because
Hmm.
if you are being love, if you are accepting that love is all, that everything on this planet needs and requires love for it to exist, you then become, I suppose, a beacon of that. You then engage in the interpretation of life in
Yep.
regards to the element of love that needs to be brought into it in what you deliver. That's the hardest gig, whilst
Hmm.
everybody else is not even contemplating that.
Yeah. It's all about free choice. Just looking at this comment that was coming back up here. Uh, yeah.
It
It's
is to a certain point. To a certain point, I think it's about free choice, because free choice is meaning that there is somebody taking it away from you. To even have that in the narrative of free choice, it's something that can actually throw and plummet you into a spiral that's downward. Because if it's
yeah.
pulled away from you, if it's taken away from you, then it's something that's being taken away. To reestablish that it's being taken away and it exists, you don't even have to comprehend that, and you go on your own journey of existence, not to break rules, but to just to exist in that space of peace, living peace with through love. That's the free choice I think Sarah is trying to discuss.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I know she's a mother. She's a mother and with young children and just moved and having a beautiful moment.
Yeah. Beautiful. It's when you say, like you say, free choice. It's like we've been taught that it's either we pay for it, or it's of freedom. And then if to strip away this word of free choice, it's all about choice. Simple as
Mm,
that. In its simplest moment, it's all about the choice: engage or disengage, action or reaction. Where should it be? It's a free choice. No, it should be just simply, it's a choice that you've made based upon intuition, based upon gathered intelligence, gathered wisdom, gathered experiences. Allows me to make that choice willingly, not by choice of saying, well, it's my free right to make this choice. No, I make this choice. It's simple as that. And I stand strong to my choice, whether I'm right or whether I'm wrong. I assume it. There's a whole other thing, is about having free choice. Do you assume your choice? You've chosen this, but do you actually follow through with it and assume the choice that was made? Because maybe in the action of that choice made,
Where'd he go? Did he just kick off? Oh, wow. Okay. Well, I'll touch base with the assume part. Us of you and me was what I would have said. I don't know what's going on now. Like there's a lot of words. Everyone knows that I've spoken with. A lot of words don't mean a lot of things anymore moving forward. Here you go. That's all right. You finish what you were saying.
I lost it.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I'll just fill you in. I just said assume.
Yeah.
In Australia, I don't know if it's the same as Canada, but assume ass of you and me. Make an ass of you and me.
Yeah, we can
Assume.
say that. We can say that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
I haven't heard it said, but we can say that. Make an ass of you and me.
Assume. And you
Yeah,
use the
because
word assume, and I
yeah,
think there's a better word when you talk, because you were talking about intuitively knowing to
yeah,
them for therefore step forward. Yes.
yeah. So in other words,
And
maybe instead of assume, I own it.
yes.
So I
Yes.
own my choice. I own my what my intuition has told me. I own that choice that I've taken forward, going forward. So
Mm-hmm.
owning it is yeah, it's a better word of assuming it, because assuming
Yeah.
everybody has assumptions, and I assume that you are, it's like we can go into all of
Yeah.
those rabbit holes, and so you know what, let's strike that word out of the vocabulary and come back to
Exactly.
I own it.
Own. Exactly. And even if you are an artist and you do like to visualize things, the Billie Jean, not Billie Jean, the Beat It film clip, was it Beat It?
Yeah, Beat It by Michael Jackson, that's a decent. Whoa.
Or is it the one where he's walking on that staircase that lights up? Which one's that? It might be Billie Jean. It might be Billie Jean. Because then he did the Grammy Awards, and that was the video that they showed, and it was that pathway lighting up of where he was stepping.
Yeah.
And in a visual, that's that whole thing that you assume that intuitively knowing the pathway that you are ready to go on, because there's many pathways any given moment of the day that each and every one of us could take advantage of or start to take a walk upon in a
Mm-hmm.
way of change of life. Now, finding the balance of what best suits you is to not quick jump it, not methodically go through it, just allow it to arrive without any interpretation or thought. And that is the element of oneness that dilutes that element of mind saying, yeah, go down this path, do this, do this, do this, which is the chase, which they put upon our mind to get us to construct the story of where we thought we needed to be. So that's that whole coming together. If you don't own it, the choice, if you don't own it, the choice will own you. Yes, that's
Oh,
correct.
I agree with that.
That's correct.
One way or the other, if you don't take ownership to the choice, again, the choice will take ownership to you, and it may not be what you want. So
Mm.
lovely. Thank you,
Yeah.
Sarah, for that.
Yes. Yes.
One of the beauties. Yeah, go ahead.
No, go on.
That was okay. Go.
No. Go.
Mr. Anthony just joined us. Okay, good evening, Mr. Anthony, or good afternoon, wherever you are. You two should get together and jam a little bit. Maybe do a live jam together, because he plays awesome music. You play awesome music together. I'd love to see
Yeah,
the
I don't
two of
think
you.
he's too far away. I don't think he's too far away either.
No, I know. I think he said he might think you might be living in where his I don't know, the story that Anthony was telling. Anyways, but I think it would be
Yeah.
great for you two to get a jam going together and see what happens, or even have a
Yeah.
live jam. It would be awesome. Okay, and Carol just says about your heart and all the actions as a beacon to all you interact with.
The way.
Light the way. This simplicity will be felt in all of your presence, if presence. Just be it in loving innocence, and it will be felt by the same. Well, Carol, that's
Yeah.
beautifully said.
The ladies have taken the moment. The ladies, and that's like, um, that's beautiful that the ladies are now taking that moment and validating what that moment means to them. You see it with Jackie, you
Yeah.
see it with Carol. Um, many, many, many ladies I'm seeing that are taking that moment and stepping from internal external to provide that solid knowledge, that solid
Yeah.
foundation for people to comprehend and therefore um, take a moment to process.
One of the things that I'm finding with a great deal of women as is that they're opening up to this essence of, yes, they recognize they are a goddess, okay, but they're also recognizing that they're not gods. They have the
Mm.
essence of a goddess that allows them to see that, you know what, it's not about a toxic masculine. Is the masculine has been wounded, they see it. The feminine has been wounded, they see it. Now they see that it's together with the masculine and the feminine that we will find a way to create a better world, a more peaceful world, a more unified world. And this is where I'm seeing a lot of the flowering of the goddess movements, where it's not about we want to take power, okay? It's more about bringing power back into synchronicity, and synchronicity with both the masculine and the feminine. Again, you know, the wholesomeness or the oneness that is not just about self, it's also about this oneness of the connection between the masculine and the feminine. Because there is a oneness that exists between the two when we find balance, of course.
Of course, and there's the oneness of consciousness
Yeah.
that I believe the women are that a majority of women are aware of. Those that are making um, those massive massive jumps within self because they appreciate what nurturing means. And when they're nurturing themselves, they're doing it at 110%. So everything that they do outside of that self is of the same base. So there's constant nurturing wherever they're arriving. It's always bringing that higher consciousness of feminine and masculine equality
Yeah.
into the one representation for the moment. And there's not a lot, there's a few, but as there's more and more that are navigating through, they're finding the doorway easier than what the male population.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're right in the sense of what you mentioned is that as the woman is coming forward in the essence of recognition of her power of nurturing, okay, she's actually helping us heal as we help them heal, because it's been so broken apart with all of the way everything has taken place, and you know, through generations of, you know, just garbage. Okay, we're starting to realize is that this Garden of Eden has always been right below our feet, and now it's time for us to take ownership. Take ownership in a sense that, guess what, I own the earth. No, take ownership as our actions towards going forward as a unified species, as recognition between the feminine and the masculine, and coming back into this unification of our higher purpose. And this is the beauty of I'm seeing with, you know, in select incidences of, you know, women rising above just as men are rising above as well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm seeing men that, you know, at one point I figured, okay, well, that's not going to happen with that gent, and then all of a sudden something clicked. Okay, and seeing that now he's starting to see the work that was required to do upon himself, and to see where he is. And it's a difference between night and day, you know, where he was 6 months ago to where he is right now. And where I see him is right now is I see him as a more wholesome person, a person that
Yeah,
is, you know, not in the narrative of his aggressivity of yesterday's. And believe me, where he was yesterday's, it was, oh boy, okay. But where he is right
yeah,
now, he's come into peace with himself. And I think this is part of the journey of oneness, is being at peace with self. I
it
mean,
is.
that,
It's architecting. It's architecting peace, man.
yeah,
Well, peace architecture in its most like poetic form. Everybody gets the opportunity to architect living peace within their own life. And you spoke of the Garden of Eden being directly below us. What if we were the Garden of Eden and the serpent, the apple, was the illustration of what mankind was creating? Yeah, that essence of fruit that wasn't fruit, that we thought was fruitful, so therefore we would exhaust it because it was a tainted garden in the first place. The disruption of balance of self, feminine and masculine, was the serpent to get in between, which that is the construct of the ego mind in which they create.
Yeah, I like that. I got nothing to say to that. Other than I agree.
because
I,
because in the reality of all of it, every part of that story has a little bit, and it's all in relevance to what we are as one,
mm-hmm.
not a consciousness, as one. Because if one is not able to stand as one, everything falls. Can't have the same across the board, because the same emotion, the same energy, the same belief and faith of self does not reside in any other person that is not of that space. So this is something that is unique to each and every one of us to interpret to our own dynamics. But then as we understand that our one is part of a consciousness, we can then understand the relevance of total forgiveness in being able to allow brothers and sisters to come and eat at the same table.
Yeah. That's going to be a beautiful day when that happens. It really will.
It's going to be epic. Epic. Huge.
So
huge. So what time has it got to now? What temperature is it down there now, or up there now?
Well, right now we're hovering still in the mid-20s. So it's, we might get some thunder showers tonight, maybe, who knows. Okay, it sometimes happens like that. We get these hot days, and in the evenings we'll get a little bit of rain, and then the following day it's back at it again. But by the looks of it, for the next week or so, we're in the high 20s, mid 30s. It can get pretty scorching. Very much so.
Have you bought new koi?
No.
No.
I'm. That's a hard one for me, Adrian.
Of course, because you put a lot of effort into it. I only ask because if you haven't filled it, if you haven't replenished it,
I go swimming in it. Even if I had koi or not, I still go swimming in it. But
and you've got a couple of days.
Yeah, there's a group of people that actually have come together and kind of surprised me here a couple of days ago, and they've pulled some money together and want to take me out shopping for koi.
Okay.
So yeah, we'll see. It's still a tender zone for me. It's still pretty sensitive. It's I mean, as I walk around the garden, every one of them that passed away is here with me, and they're looking back at the water pond, and they were put that way with purpose, because that was their happy space. Yeah. And I honestly, yes, I miss the interaction, okay, with them, but I'm also still still on the recoil of the hurt, because
of course. And it's not something you just go back down the shop and go buy, because there's
every people ask me. I chose, in fact, I spent hours, speaking to the koi, the koi farms in Japan. I spoke to the breeders. I had them send me videos of, okay, they've got this one, they've got this one, they've got this one. And you know what? One of them got so frustrated with me. He says, "What, you want me to go through all the 10,000 fish?" And I said, and until I see exactly what I'm looking for, it might take that. So
yeah,
off it went. Okay. It just, just the way I was. You know, it was like I was looking for something in particular. Like a majority of the koi I have is what we call or had, or what I call they're called the doitsu class, and the doitsu is a mirror based on the mirror carp, but their scales are only partially on the body, and the rest of it is as soft as a baby's bottom.
Yeah.
Okay, and their scales are varying different designs or different
Yeah.
shapes, and then the lateral side of it, and it was always, I'm looking for that uniformity in their scaling. Okay, the color, you can't get perfection, but you can come damn close to it, right? And so yeah, it's quite the process. For me it
Oh,
was.
definitely. It's like trading cards,
Oh
but
yeah.
with
I,
life attached to it. In
yeah.
regards to in regards to a koi, especially, like I've been to Singapore airport, and in
Mm-hmm.
the airport there is
Oh yeah.
a massive koi fish pond, and all the way through Asia there's koi fish everywhere. But that
Yep.
was the most symbolic for me, because they had like the cards of the specific fish there, of
Yes.
that actual fish, not its breed, that actual fish, and the colorations and the scales and everything like that. And once you got talking to them in a 6-hour layover, you you got to understand that very element of individuality,
Oh yeah.
of what one is versus exactly the same in a labeling of, in a
Yeah.
generic label of, but in an interpretation of individuality, it's chalk and cheese. One
Oh
is
god, yeah.
completely different to the other.
Oh yeah, a lot of people say, "Well, how can you tell the difference?" Oh, believe me, I can. Okay,
Yeah.
it can be so subtle, but
Mm.
and it's not just color, it's not just scaling, it's also the character. They have a character. So it's like I wasn't settling when I was talking to the breeders. I wasn't settling for just a photo. No, I want to see an actual video of this fish. And it's like he says, well, you see him getting
Yeah.
flustered, but I think he understood because I've
Of
dealt
course.
with him. He's known me for years. I mean, I've dealt with him before in every aspect of questions and through the previous group of fish that I had as well. So he knows I'm nitpicky, and I say that in a not in a facetious way, but I am very picky because it's not for the appeal of what I see. It's overall everything, just
Of course.
everything.
Of course.
It's I guess you could say it's like I'm trying to choose my child in many ways.
Oh, well, I see it as you've created a space of, and people may laugh, but it's a place of well-being, and the koi are protected. They're they're actually respected.
Oh yeah,
So the efforts of you, it's adopting a koi to bring home,
yeah,
to give it a life in that pond. So therefore, you want a mutual respect, because there's like the plant that you put in your pond, you've then got the fish that you want
yeah,
to see. And it just happens that it's in Japan, and you've got to ask the guy, hey, you need to video it for me, man.
yeah,
I'm not in the shop there, I can't see it. So I get it totally. I
yeah.
completely understand.
When I was building this pond, um, I wasn't thinking of what the pond was from where I'm sitting. I was thinking of what the pond is from being inside the pond. If I was
Of
that
course.
fish, what do I require? Is it just a hole in the ground? No. If I emptied all the water out, you would see that there's channels and there's caves and there's variations of depth. It was a playground. It
Yeah.
was totally stimulation for them because I was thinking like I'm not putting them in a prison. I'm creating a home, something that will flourish and they will flourish in, and I will appreciate their life. And so, yeah, I'm very nitpicky with the breeders, as just as much as I was in the creation of it. And somebody said to me, he says, Gary, did you actually place all of this by hand? And I said, yeah, yeah, every rock, every plant, every seed, everything. everything was like, he said, well, you must have dug that out with a tractor. I says, no. I said, I dug it out with hand, and I shaped, the channels and the chasms, and, made sure that the rubber would foam over top of it, and everything. The same way as our topic of designing peace within myself. In the process of doing this, I was also architecturally designing my own peace, because it's to experience it when they were here was mystical, just pure mystical.
Oh, it was just home. It was home. There was no confusion. There was no chaos. There was no disruption. No. It was, and that's that oneness that we've been speaking about, and the balance of that is that whatever you put your hand to, it's effortless.
Yeah,
it's effortless because it's being constructed because of the want, because of the need, not because of anything else. And therefore, you're doing it with pride. You're doing it with passion. And that's that whole slowing down of what is a chore, what is the reality of where we now find ourselves.
Oh, you couldn't have said it better, my friend. You couldn't have said it better. Passion. It's in everything. Passion for self, passion for life, passion for what you do. You know what? Somebody says, I have a job that I hate. Well, you know what? You can change it. Just change the way that you see it.
We've all been there.
Yep. So, my friend, for tonight, what's the parting words that you would like to leave with our beautiful audience?
Well, thank you, Asan, again, for putting this together, and Gary, and those that are watching. Within the balance of self, every breath is a creation, and every creation is a moment. And every moment is for you to reflect the best of what you are to the world that is watching. Because they're the only ones that will create an element of judgment that you will listen to, because you won't listen to the judgment of yourself. Because your judgment of yourself will not allow you to go and do that in the first place.
Yeah.
So simply just be the best that you always have to. Everything
Beautiful.
else is just joke.
For a man that said you're not educated, my friend, you're far more educated than you give yourself credit for. You have an education of life, and you have an.
I know that I'm a smart little cookie, and I know that whole education buffer, limiter, parameter always gets thrown into the equation when people meet. Yeah. And they go, where did you study and all of that? So it's part of, I suppose, the simpler understanding that the most brilliant man in the world still can't understand why the fuck he is here. Yeah. Okay. And I'm not the most brilliant man in the world. I would say I'm one of the most dumbest men in the world. But I know why I'm here. And I know what this means. And I know why we are doing this. Because this is not about one person. It is about all people. And it is about all feeling love when there's a point where there's no love to be felt.
Yeah. I don't know what more to say to that, honestly. But what I will say is that if you're trying to understand this essence of what love is, you haven't looked deep enough. You haven't gone deep enough within. Because the truest essence of love is what you see in the mirror. Love yourself. Because if you can love yourself, you can love the world. You can love another human being. You can love an animal, a mammal, an ave, a tree. It starts with you. It starts with me. And I got one purpose. And that purpose is to show you exactly what it is, how it is, and to learn more about it together. Because as much as I know and as much as I believe, there's still more to learn, more to see, more to believe. Because the power of people and the power of a unified peoples is unlimited as to what we can create. And it's time to create a new story. And Adrian and I, we're here for that. I wholeheartedly believe that. I wholeheartedly believe that the purpose we have is to bring and show the purest and most pristine side of love of self, regardless if there's people that don't want to see it in us. We know what it is. I know what I see in Adrian. I know what I see in myself. Do you know what you see in you? For this Monday, Tuesday, two parts of the world, from two men that on the outside of that's who we are, but on the inside of it, we're a soul. We have a heart. We have a spirit. And it's the soul and the heart and the spirit that I believe in. The rest of it, it's just a package. So
Exactly right. Exactly right. Thank you.
So thank you everybody for joining us on this wonderful evening or midday. And we look forward to seeing you very soon. Usually it's a Saturday, okay? But other things that took place, and if everything goes well, we'll see you Saturday. Okay? Back on schedule again.
Perfect. Love your work. Love everyone out there. Love yourself like you love your brother. And we will see you soon.
Namaste.